Yo, we'll do it live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's the post weigh-in show. We're talking about UFC Abu Dhabi. It's going down in just a few hours, right? It's coming around the pike. So we wanted to make sure that we got this content out. And I know that some people always ask, where's Brother Wizz? Where's Brother Wizz? If we don't have Brother Wizz on the Bets and Banter stream, we always try and make it work for this post weigh-in stream. You asked for him. He's back in the building. Brother Wizz, how are you, my man? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me on as always. The people have spoken and we are here. But yeah, guys, sorry for not being on the Bets and Banter stream. I had a lot to do this week. It's been crazy. Alondria Rosales, Jacob Rosales fighting tomorrow in the LFA out of Classic Fight Team. We've been putting in a lot of work. So shout out to them. And yeah, helped a friend move this morning. Been a pretty productive day. I'm sore as a motherfucker, but I got my brother Liam. We both got some coffee. I think I deserve a hit of the Benjamin. Right in time to break down some great fucking fights. Let's go.
Absolutely, my brother. And you know that the first one up, we already see the two big men on the screen here. We got a heavyweight fight to start the night. We've got an Abu Dhabi, contender, right? Our guy, the Brazilian, Marcus Buchecha, taking on Martin Buday, right? Big man Buday, 6-1 in the UFC, very shiny record, like I like to say on paper, right? Then you start to look into the details a little bit, mostly beating guys with losing records in the promotion. Andrei Arlovsky, a 45-year-old in his last UFC fight. You kind of start digging into the details, and maybe that 6-1 is a little bit of a fortunate run out. How well would he do against, Umar Kane, the guy that Marcus Buchecha lost to? I think he probably would get smashed into a million pieces in that kind of fight. So, man, what do you think about this first matchup of the night? How do you feel looking at these two guys squaring off? Is there any, inherent advantage that you see in terms of size, physicality, anything like that? What are your thoughts, my brother?
Obviously, we're going to speak about Marcus Buchecha. He's making his debut here first. Very solid jiu-jitsu black belt, multi-time champion. The heavyweight division has not seen grappling like this, and I think a lot of people are going to become more woke to it tomorrow. This is probably one of the greatest heavyweight signings we've had in a while in the UFC. So I'm really excited to see the debut of Marcus Buchecha. I think he's a stud. Last time out for Martin Buday faced Uran Satibaldiev, who was on, I think was it 3 or 4 days notice? I can't remember. And Satibaldiev is not a heavyweight. He's a light heavyweight. But he came in on a couple days notice, weighed in, I think was like 219 or 223, something around there. Very light for the heavyweight division. And he took Martin Buday to a split decision. I understand Martin Buday is not like the best striker, and Uran Satibaldiev is long and he's fast. But man, like you can't come out there and have that kind of showing against someone who's on 3 days short notice, who's from the LFA, who's super freaking hittable in Uran. That is a really bad look. For once, not for once, Buchecha is going to have some measurables in the reach. Buday does have a freaking long reach for the heavyweight division, and he's usually either evens or has a slight advantage against some of his opponents. But I think what Buchecha is going to really be doing here is going for takedowns, staying safe on the feet. On the feet, he's more safe. But I think where the fight will change is the grappling. Obviously, his last or only loss is against Umar Kane, and he took rounds off of Umar Kane for all I'm concerned. Umar Kane considered one of the better fighters in one championship. So I think he's better than Martin Buday. I think Buchecha is probably just in a class above Martin here. So for me, I think it's just Buchecha. I think sprinkle a little bit on the sub. But yeah, I think he will be able to get this done inside the distance.
Yeah, one thing I did want to note is, we have seen Buday kind of capitulate to strikes before. And, obviously that's against Shamil Gaziev, kind of presents a different style. But I will note that Buchecha hits like a truck on the top position from what I noted on tape. Like when the guy's in the top position, he's raining down hammers. He's throwing hard punches. And that's opening up some of these opportunities to finish fights via submission, but he does have a TKO on his record as well. And, I think that he could wrist ride Budai and beat him up, if he gets him to the ground. I just wouldn't be surprised by any finish, especially in the early going. If the fight gets extended, he might just be content to try and, get him down to the ground, hold on to the wrist, kind of bank rounds and minutes there. That would be my only concern, but I lean towards the under here. I think it's going to be a levels fight. And I think that, Martin Budai just got his black belt, right? And he was posting, I just got my black belt. Buchecha is a 13-time world black belt champion, so he would be like the worst black belt that he ever competed against, with all due respect to Martin Budai. So that's kind of the thing for me about Buchecha that separates him here. High level quality of competition. It's not like it's his first UFC fight, is his first MMA fight or something. He got his toes wet in another organization. He did get a win over a Greco-Roman world champion who's a 10-4 professional MMA fighter as well. So I think that he's kind of cut his teeth the right way, and I think Buchecha is going to get the job done in this first fight of the night.
Just to add,
with that, my man. Please go ahead.
Martin Budai, part of his game is clinch. I think if he clinches up with Buchecha, he's making a very big mistake. I think he instantly gets shot on and taken down. So it just plays into Buchecha's overall game here. But yeah, crazy fight. Also, Buchecha at the heavyweight division in jiu-jitsu, if not number one, if not number two, number three in the world, like cemented. Like there's no debate.
And then when you think about like the UFC's quality of heavyweight grapplers, like Tom Aspinall's pretty good. Jailton Almeida's pretty good. There's very few and far between guys that like their grappling is their calling card, their bread and butter. I think Buchecha would be favored, to beat a Sergey Spivak, honestly. So we'll have to see. That will be proven as time goes on. But he's got to get his feet wet. He's got to get one under the belt, and Martin Budai is a good first opportunity. Shout out to Cam Jugden in the chat, says, I watched Salty go life and death with a Brazilian cab driver a month prior and laid chalk on Budai. He almost died. And I will say, guys, like Budai got hurt multiple times against Sati Baldiev. And to Wiz's point, he weighed in at 222 for that fight. A small guy, not the most imposing athlete, so to speak, definitely a powerful guy. A durable man. I think that's like his big selling point as a fighter is that he, Sati Baldiev can take a hell of a punch as well. But it's for me, not a super high level fight, not a super high level win. And it's one of many not super high level wins on the record of Martin Budai. So I don't think that Buchecha is going to be outclassed, really anywhere. And I don't think that Martin Budai is a very heavy hitter. If that was one of his attributes, I'd be more worried here. But I think Buchecha can take a decent punch, and I don't think that Budai hits super hard. So unless he lands like a big knee to the body or something, like I think he's going to have a very hard time, hurting or damaging Buchecha. And I think on the other side, Buchecha is going to be able to throw with a little bit of impunity because he's going to be scared to get taken down.
Brother Cam, we will never forget Leon Suarez. We will never forget that fight.
Never that. But next up, my man, we've got the local flavor of the night, Muhammad Yaya, taking on Stephen Wynn. And, Stephen Wynn is obviously a massive favorite, but the hometown guy is Muhammad Yaya here. How do you see this fight going down? You feel like there's any betting opportunities? And what do you think about the weigh-in? I'm going to get that on screen right now.
I personally have never been the biggest fan of Muhammad Yaya for obvious reasons. The guy is super low volume. He is susceptible to accepting pressure and getting back down against the cage. And that's never good. You don't want to see that with any fighter that you want to back. Now, I understand the line is pretty indicative of who the market thinks is going to win, and that's obviously Stephen Nguyen here at minus 400s. Muhammad Yaya, I think, is just, at this point, with all due respect, a punching bag beyond round one. Even in round one, but at least round one, he moves and he does offer a little. But as the fight goes on and as his cardio wears out, he slows down. He doesn't throw any more volume. He just accepts the pressure. He gets beat up and then continues to circle the cage. And I think just Stephen Nguyen's going to be able to throw out volume. Like you can count on Stephen Nguyen to go out there and at least walk down fighters who will accept the pressure, and he will treat like opposition as they're supposed to be treated. Last time out against Jarno Aarons, I mean, not the best of looks, but Jarno Aarons isn't like a bum. I would want to say Muhammad Yaya fits in that category. So I think Stephen Nguyen wins this fight inside the distance.
Yeah, man, we tend to see this fight the same way. The one thing I would note is, we have seen Steve get, tagged on the chin before, take a lot of chances on the feet before, especially. So that's like the one concern that I have with him. I don't think Yaya is a very dangerous guy. I don't think he's very good in any one particular phase. I think he's there to be hit with leg kicks. He didn't look very assertive in the boxing against Kawe Fernandez. Kawe Fernandez was basically just kicking his legs with impunity, doing whatever he wanted in that fight. So all things considered, I'm not sold on Yaya at any level, really. I don't think Stephen Nguyen is like a guy that is super reliable to bet on at like minus 400. Like when I'm looking for minus 400 guys, I want like clear wrestling and grappling upside. I want deep cardio bag. I want to know that they're going to be defensively responsible on the feet. And I don't know that he checks all those boxes for me. So do I think he's going to throw out more volume? Yes. Do I think he's the more dangerous striker? Yes. Do I think that if they mix it up on the ground, Stephen Nguyen is like at worst probably 50-50 there? Yes. But I also just think that like he's a guy that in a normal fight, in a normal UFC context, like there's no way I'm laying minus 400 with him. And then when you consider the fact that like, let's say this fight goes to the scorecards, this is definitely a candidate for, BS decision if it's in any way close. So for me, it's the kind of fight I just don't want to get involved in. I don't feel like there's value on Yaya. I don't feel like there's value on Nguyen. I just feel like it's a total pass from a betting perspective. Unless you, again, like you said, target the ITD, if Yaya is just not on the level, he's going to get lit up with strikes here. Nguyen does throw a lot of volume out there, typically speaking.
Liam, do you remember off the top of your head? I could have sworn this was Stephen I Will Win, but who is the fighter with the nickname I Will and last name is also in Win? It's not Stephen, but now it's gonna bug me.
I'm not sure, dude. I'm not sure. He's listed as the Ninja. Steve the Ninja Nguyen. So if we're going to see a night of ninja chokes, perhaps you have to consider Steve's chances as well. But I will just say this. When you look, the submission prop is like plus 3XX, bro. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. That's disgusting. Horrible prices. So, for me, that's it's Duran. It's Duran.
No, it's not Duran because Duran's last name is not Nguyen. I'm talking
it's about just Nguyen. Yeah, you're right. It's just Nguyen.
I think it was Stephen I Will Winsky. Now his last name was Winsky.
Well, he must have been a regional guy. I don't remember.
Yeah, regional.
In any case, my man, we can move along to a fight where, depending on who you ask, they might call this a regional level fight. You got Asan taking on Billy Elakana. And I think both these guys have some work to do to prove that they're UFC level. On the Asan side, he got a couple wins over guys that don't have wins in the UFC, right? Guys that are not high level UFC fighters. And, one was a revenge win, right? Like he had to go get that one back against Anton Zerkali. He had to, walk through some damage to do it. So when you look at his trajectory, like, yeah, he's getting a little bit better over time. He's still 29 years of age. So, you can expect some small improvements, I think, from this guy over time. But like, what does the bulk of his career look like? Kind of brawling like a wild man, taking a lot of chances, swinging hooks in the pocket and relying on his durability and his power, and fighting guys that aren't very good. So when you look at like all those things combined, I look at like, is Asan for me a minus 280 type of guy? Again, the answer would be no, right? He's 0-2 career to the submission. His cardio for me is a red flag. And, he basically stands in the pocket and trades heavies in the 205-pound division. And when you look at like how that works out, like long-term, that's going to start being like, hey, I give one, I take one, and that could go either way, especially when you fight good guys. So looking at Iwan Kutalaba, he kind of ran him for his paper on the mat, and when you look at Billy Elakana here, for me, he's like one of the biggest unknowns on the card in terms of like how actually good is this guy. I thought he looked decent on his regional tape leading up to him coming to the UFC. He takes the fight on short notice. That's always difficult, right? And he's fighting a guy in Bogdan Guskov who, gets some respect on the feet. And Billy basically went out there, got to a takedown easily early, got to the back early, hung out there, was looking for a rear naked choke, was looking to fight hands, looking to do his thing. And, one thing we always talk about with these guys that are making their UFC debut is UFC debut jitters. And I think, the guy went out there, he got to a great position, he started to panic because he wasn't finding the finish. And he's like, man, I might not have a gas tank to fight this guy for 15 minutes. Like, I better get it now. And so he starts making some desperate choices and he loses the position, right? Ends the round on bottom. That's a little demoralizing, so I think he won that round. He won the bulk of the minutes. He did most of the work in that round, but then, he gave up a position late. Then he comes out in round 2, and Guskov's ripping him to the body, right? Guskov's starting to really touch him up to the head, but also most importantly to the body. And I think that's where he got him. I think he was already tired. I think he was already, starting to slow down a little bit. And those body shots really took it all out of him. He took a knee there. We see that in boxing, right? And guys just go on to, fight another fight, have another day in their career, right? It's like kind of the cost of doing business in a combat sport. Takes it on short notice, gave what he had that night, tried to get the win, didn't really have it. And so I do, worry like, hey, maybe this guy, when the going gets tough, he's just not going to have it. That's a possibility. But also the possibility is, hey, outlier performance. That's the worst performance of my career. I'm going to take it, buckle down, get serious, and have a better performance with a full training camp. And the truth is, like, I look at Ibo Asan as a guy that is exploitable in this division. Like, if you have skills, if you're a guy that's going to be a serious player, you're going to have to be able to beat him. Like, if Iwan Cutelaba can beat him, you're going to have to find a way to beat this guy, right? And, like, again, does it take some great sophistication? Was that like elite black belt work from Iwan Cutelaba on the mat? No, it was I take you down and you don't really know what you're doing here. So big bang takes little bang. And Billy Elakana has shown a willingness and ability to go take somebody down and put him in a compromised position in the first round. We just saw that that's a way to get this guy out of there. So for me, that's already like dogger pass type of situation. And then the other thing is, when you look at how these guys strike, Billy is a guy that likes to move a little bit on the outside. He's a guy that likes to work a little bit behind some longer range tools. And again, against Guskov, a guy that kind of takes some weird angles and throws some crazy shots and throws uppercuts and, is like working off of weird angles and willing to mix it up in the grappling. Like those kind of things like make him a different threat, right? Whereas Ibo Asan, he mostly wants to throw big winging hooks. And I feel like Elakana can kind of jab, circle off, cut angles, pivot, work around in the big cage a little bit. And he got head kicks. He's got body kicks. He can throw to the leg as well. So maybe he's able to just chip away at this guy, take a little bit of his cardio, a little bit of his power away from him, teep the body, kick the legs. And I just feel like I looked at these two guys squaring off, and I'll pull that up on the screen as I kick it to you, my brother. I feel like Billy Elakana looks like a light heavyweight. I was worried about like he's going to come in, he's going to look so small compared to this guy. He does not, right? Like they're around the same age, they're around the same height, they're around the same reach. Like where's this massive advantage for Ibo Asan except that he has more professional experience? By the way, most of it fighting Jay Bronies, right? Then you look at Billy Elakana, he had an amateur run where he fought Brian Battle and Sullivan Cauley and like guys that have gone on to have meaningful professional careers. So I just don't want to write off this kid because he had a shitty, UFC debut and say he can't go out there and win a fight. I look at him training with Ankalaev on Instagram. I look at him training with fucking Volkov on Instagram. Are these bums? Is he just out there like getting worked by everybody? Maybe. But like, again, he's doing the right things, training with the right guys, taking the right fights, it feels. So Billy Elakana is the pick or pass for me, man. Like I feel like he's live to go out there and submit this guy in the first round, and he's a massive underdog. So why not? It's a dogger pass one for me. How about you, brother?
I definitely get where you're coming from with the Elakana side, but to be honest, I just think it's more of a levels fight. They don't have the greatest. Both fighters don't have the greatest strength of schedule. Obviously, It's going to go to Ibo because he's faced more UFC level competition. But I personally think in the grappling realm, if Ibo didn't, struggle as much against the Pleasure Man, I don't think that Elakana can put him in worse positions. I think Pleasure Man is a much better grappler than Elakana. Maybe not much better, but definitely a level above Elakana in the grappling. He's more, he's slicker with the transitions, and he's good off the back. And Ibo was able to defend him off. And I think Ibo's power, if he lands one, Elakana's not going to go out. It's not like he's super chinny, but Elakana is also one of the fighters who is very momentum based, and if the fight's not going his way, he tends to shell up and not really offer too much in return. I remember covering Elakana back in the day with PFL when I used to do media for them, and he's a super nice guy. And like I would remember watching the fights and just thinking he could always do more, whether it was output, whether it was just mistakes against the cage. So he leaves a lot to be desired. I'm not saying Ibo's a world beater at all, but I think he has the not the skill, but I think he's just more experienced, and he's going to be able to show that experience in the cage. For me, it's Aslan. I think the most clickable bet would be Aslan decision. If you were to bet anything in this fight, I would stay away.
Interesting. I think the GTD is a pretty big price as well. I would have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure. And I think Ibo is by decision as big as like 7-1. So you could definitely get some decent return there. I kind of think of Ibo as like a front-loaded fighter. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. I know he got that late finish against Turkali. I feel like the physicality difference between him and Turkali was like light years away. Just like Turkali kind of memed him the first time because he got so tired, right? Like he literally just gassed himself in 2 minutes and had nothing left to give. So this guy who's kind of a goof was able to get him, right? But dude, you look at Turkali's run in the UFC and he basically got punked by everybody he ever fought. Like he went 0-4, right? You look at who else did Ibo Aslan fight? Rafael Cerqueira. That guy literally has 2 fights in a row now of going, and that's it. This is the whole fight. So when we see more, like maybe we can give some evaluation, but it's like he's literally, we talk about he's fought more UFC level competition. He's fought more guys that also fought in the UFC, not guys that ever beat a UFC guy, like guys that just, like their claim to fame is that they fought Ibo Aslan, right? Like Turkali, that's his claim to fame. Rafael Cerqueira, that's claim to fame. That's his biggest thing he ever did. I got knocked out by that guy. Yeah, he put me on a highlight reel one time. And the one thing that I will say is big for Aslan here, crowd's going to be eating out of his hand. Like he's going to get that big pop. He's going to get that kind of reaction. So maybe that puts a little pressure on Elakana. Maybe Elakana is just not built for these big moments, right? I do think that's a possibility. But when I look at it, like if Asan doesn't get him out of there, like I feel like Elakana just has some tools that can make this a hard fight for him. Like, again, like who's the best kicker that Asan's gone against, Like Turkali's not very good at anything. Cerqueira, we have no evidence he's good at anything. So it's just like basically the only evidence about Cerqueira is like word of mouth that he's a good jiu-jitsu player. That's it. Like other than that, there's no evidence that he's even good. So it's just like, it's like phantom tape. And I look at Billy Elakana and like, there's video of him fighting guys that, like you mentioned, in the PFL and these things, and like digging down for 15 minutes, like going out there, landing more, getting the judges to agree, like, hey, raise my hand. And it's going to be harder to do in this part of the world against this guy to get them to raise his hand if he does more for 15 minutes. But that's the kind of thing I feel like Asan, for me, is a liability on the mat and a gasser. And I think those two things will give Elakana some opportunity. If your hands start coming down and you're not being defensively responsible, and Elakana actually put in a full training camp and doesn't, keel over in the second round, he could start putting up some high kicks, man. So that's something that I'm going to be looking for here is Elakana, maybe some late round props, or maybe some Elakana by submission. Because again, Ibo 0-2 career to the sub. Like that for me is just a glaring red flag looking at somebody's resume. So we'll have to move to the next one though, my man. And
brother, just the last note on this one, Elakana is someone who is backed by the PFL and backed by Extreme Couture, and he trains with some high level guys. I will give him that. It just never has translated enough for me in the octagon.
Yep, best win of his career was on the amateurs over Brian Battle, so he's still looking to reach those peaks again. But next up, my man, we got Amanda Hebos taking on Tabatha Ricci. I feel like this is the kind of fight that's probably destined for a competitive split decision. I will note, and I'll bring it up on the screen as I kick it to you, my brother, that Hebos is definitely the bigger woman. That's reflected in the height and reach, measurements on the screen here. But it is definitely also reflected in the face-off. Hebos looked to be the bigger woman, but ultimately, I think durability is like one thing that most women's fighters don't really need a ton of because most women don't hit very hard. But I think Amanda Hebos does have a questionable chin. I don't think Tabatha Ricci hits very hard, so I don't think it'll be a problem here. But that is the one thing for me that like makes me not love her at this price, at this weight class. Luana Pinheiro had some success against her early, but then, Pinheiro fell off the cliff that she always does in terms of cardio. She's 3-4 in the UFC. That's the only woman that Amanda Hebos has beat at 115 pounds since like 2020 or something. And so like at her best at this weight class, wins over Dern, Jandiroba, like way better than Ricci's ever done, right? But she hasn't really done a lot of that lately. She's done a lot of losing lately. She's done a lot of bouncing back and forth between 15 and 25 lately. And Tabatha Ricci on the other side has just been plying her craft, getting a little bit better. The stat line that she put up against Angela Hill, despite the fact that the visuals weren't always great, was pretty solid, right? It was good for DraftKings. It was good for getting the judges to agree that she won the fight. Enough top control, enough takedowns, enough significant strikes, She got absolutely owned by Yan Xiaonan. Like, no two ways about that, right? But I think Amanda Hebos might have gotten knocked out by Yan Xiaonan with a similar performance, right? Her chin doesn't hold up very good under fire. Maybe she could have had more success grappling. Maybe she would have tried takedowns. Tabatha Ricci out there, putting on a mental deficiency performance. But when I just look at what we can expect from these two ladies, I think that they're both pretty defensively responsible on the ground, except for Amanda in her last fight. But again, it's Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern is extremely high level. So other than that, like both these women, pretty measured on the feet. I think Amanda's a little more dangerous there, but I think that Tabitha's a little bit more durable. So overall, man, split decision, I feel like, is loading in this one. How do you feel?
I'll make this easy. Pass. Like, why bet this fight? I think this is the fight that you want to watch for obvious reasons, but then you just do not want to bet on either of these females. Obviously, dog or pass. I think Tabitha, if she finds success with the takedowns, she could rack up control time. Also, in the striking, maybe she does stun Ribas. Who knows? Maybe Ribas' chin is just that gone. That moment could win the round. Take the +3.5 on Tabitha.
I mean, dude, she was dominating Marina Rodriguez in the first round and then got hit like twice and the fight was over.
Yeah. So. I think you could play the +3.5 on Tabitha if you really want to bet something in this fight at -190. I think that's just a better way of playing fight goes to decision, because I do think that Ricci wins at least one round on all the judges' scorecards. And as Brother Liam's saying too, the fight ends in split. Seems like it's destined to go there too. So for me, I think this fight is a fight.
Amanda Hebos always has immaculate vibes. She looks like the happiest person in the UFC at all times. She can also throw down at her best. Like that third round knockout of Pinheiro, she walked her down. She found her with big spinning shots. It was kind of cool. Amanda Hebos at her best, good fighter, right? But I do worry that the constantly switching weight classes is going to reach the point of diminishing returns. She looks to have made the weight okay this time, so I salute her for that. She's also fighting at the weight consecutive times, which I like to see. I think she just should permanently be at strawweight. Don't take short notice fights. Plan your camps accordingly. Again, it's easier said than done, but I just don't think she has the physicality to compete at 125 pounds. So when I look at this fight, I'm like, this is a fight where she should be able to compete, but is it going to be too much to continue cutting this weight at her age now? I don't know. So I think it's going to be competitive. Here's the face-off, though, guys. You do see a little bit taller on the side of Amanda Ribas, also a little bit longer in terms of arm reach, throws more kicks as well. So those could be some deciding factors for why she's the favorite. But I think it's just a question of maybe she should be favored like minus 130 to plus 110 here. Maybe not as big of a spread as you're seeing for a fight that's probably going to go to a close decision more often than not. But with that being said, guys, we can move along to this next fight here where we've got Damone Blackshere taking on dangerous Davy Grant. And Davy Grant's got some knockouts in the UAE before. He's a guy that has a fun UFC career, fun resume, and also sneaky, pretty impressive, what he's done in the later stages of his career. Had some unfortunate runouts with the judges' scorecards, but overall put together a very solid and respectable body of work. And on the Damone Blackshere side, you could say the exact same thing. The guy's been really disappointing in his career in decisions. Last time out, went out there and found a way to win a decision, did it pretty cleanly. So that's a step in the right direction for him. Did it with the striking, showed that he's capable of managing a fight for 15 minutes. But I think he's got a different challenge in front of him here in Davy Grant, a guy who's a little bit more potent on the feet, also a guy that you'd expect the things to be flawed about Davy Grant. He's a British guy, so you'd think, all right, no grappling, no wrestling. Then you think, okay, well, he's an old guy, right? So, his chin probably sucks, and he probably has no cardio, right? Like these are just like the general thoughts that you'd have with these kind of categories, right? And it's like, well, no, what you really see is like, Davy Grant, opportunistic submissions. I mean, he put Rafael Assunção to sleep in the third round of that fight. Absolutely choked him unconscious. It was brutal stuff. And Assunção's I'm not saying he's like a jiu-jitsu savant or something, but he's not a slouch on the mat either. He's a competent guy, knows what he's doing, and he got beat there, right? Then you see, Davy Grant go out there competing with these young guys, competing with undefeated fighters, making them look average at best on the feet, going pretty competitive, tit for tat with them. Split decision against Yanez. I thought that was probably the right call, but it was a close fight. It could have went either way. Then you look at split decision with, what's his name? Daniel Marcos, right? I thought that one was just a plain bad decision. So Davy Grant, 14-7, but a couple of those 7 have been hard done. And overall, losing to Chito Vera, the guy went on to fight for the title. The guy went on to be a top 10 guy. He didn't get finished, right? Fought his ass off there to stay in the fight till the final horn. So I think Blackshere could go out here and sub him. That's why he's a big favorite here. It's like, hey, Blackshere's got a dominant ground game. He's getting better on the feet, younger man by 9 years in a division where that could matter, the bigger guy as well. But I also think like Davy Grant perpetually disrespected at the window. I thought Ramon Tavares, a guy who can go out there and punch, hit hard, he kind of just made him look amateurish, right? Ramon could hardly find him all night. And, Davy was touching him up. So Davy's shown he can knock people out. He's shown he can submit people. He's shown he could go dance around somebody for 15 minutes too. So for me, it's a dogger pass money line situation. If I was to like the Blackshere side, I'd probably just be investing in, the submission prop, something like that. Like, hey, go out there, take it where you're better, impose your will and your skill set. But if he just wants to play around on the feet because he's been working on his skills in Thailand and, doing these kind of things, getting better in the standing position, I think that would be a huge mistake. And I do think he could risk getting knocked out. Montel Quick Jackson is a big power puncher, no doubt about it. But Montel Jackson also put him down with like one punch, put him out cold. Yusuf Zalal hurt him real bad multiple times in the third round of that fight. He's been hurt a couple of times now. So I definitely think that Damone Blackshere is a guy that, can be clipped on the chin. We know that from the data set. So I think that it's a fun, competitive scrap here. Right guy's favored. Again, it's just a question of degree for me. I would make him much more closer to a minus 200, type of favorite here, not a minus 350 or something like that. So how do you feel about this one, my brother? Damone Blackshere, chance to break out here and get a big win over a notable name and a fan favorite here in Davy Grant.
Yeah, we kind of see this similarly. I think Davy Grant on the feet can give Damone Blackshere a lot of issues, but I think Damone has a couple of weapons that could bug Davy Grant, like the kicks from Damone. He's really active with those leg kicks. But Davy has some power. Man, that motherfucker's shredded.
I was thinking the exact same thing, dude. He literally looks like he was cut from steel.
He's always in the best of shapes, but like this camp looks probably career best. But going back to Davy Grant here, last time out against Ramon Taveras, what a win! Everyone was. I think most people were on Ramon Taveras that week, myself included, and I thought the boxing and the power from Taveras would affect the older Davy Grant, but Davy Grant went out there and really frustrated Taveras and really touched him up in the first round, hurt him, implored the leg kicks, and went out there and showed that he's not just some 39-year-old bantamweight. He's going to go out there and compete. So in the striking, I think it's Davy Grant. Damon Blackshere got touched up 2 fights ago against Cody Gibson in the first round. Let's not forget, Damon Blackshere.
I bet Cody Gibson
almost got finished by Cody Gibson in the first round, but then
Cody Gibson did Cody Gibson things.
Cody Gibson did Cody Gibson things. Yeah, exactly. Damon proved to be too tough. I think maybe a different ref would have stopped the fight there. But anyways, Damon ended up winning the fight by submission, and I think he could do the same here. Davy Grant, career 7-4 to the submission. Sure, it's a positive record, but who is he subbing and who is he getting submitted by? Like it's levels. There's only what was his name? Is it Benitez? I believe he was like 12-1 to the sub that subbed him, and that's like a honorable name. Where is it? Is it Manny Bermudez? Yes, Manny Bermudez, 12-1 to the sub. The other 3 are some pretty average fighters, and I think Damon will be able to take them down and slice through the guard. Not really too impressed with Davy Grant's ground game, even though we haven't seen too much of it. But I think Damon should have no trouble winning this fight by submission.
I need to see a side angle to get a real look at Davy Grant's HGH gut to make sure that he's got that real bubble kind of look going on. Because if he does, it's definitely a vote of confidence. I will say people don't want to admit it, but right here on the screen before you is peak male performance right here. Davy Grant goes out there and wins UFC fights, just showing up looking like a dude off the street. Like he just ripped his shirt off after doing a shift at the pizza parlor. The fucking GOAT, Davy Grant. I do say I have to root for Davy Grant here to do the funniest thing ever. He's done it before, guys. Jonathan Martinez is 10-5 in the UFC, right? Very respectable UFC level fighter. And Davy Grant knocked him fucking dead cold. Just knocked him the fuck out. And it was awesome. And when you look back, Davy Grant is just one of these guys that's going to give himself chances because he takes risks, right? So that means one day Davy Grant's going to get put on a postcard, right? We know that going in. But we also know that, like, what does he still have? They say power's the last thing to go. The guy comes out there, last time we saw him, he looked fast, elusive, with it, sprightly, good for 15 minutes. And then it's like he also hits very hard, and he's not afraid to get into a swinging match. He's not afraid to exchange with you. So if Damon lands something, tries to come in and get wild, like Davy's going to throw back a 4-piece combination with the biscuits. And I just think that that's the kind of guy, like, Damon Blackshere, first round, first 7.5 minutes, one guy. Later on in the fight, historically, has been a different guy. He was able to pull it off, managing the pace, doing it his way. But, like, if this fight starts to get crazy, if they've got some frenetic scrambles or something, Davy Grant's going to get back up throwing body shots and headshots. Like, he's going to get back up getting aggressive and violent. And I think those are the kind of things where, again, uses the law, down 2 rounds, in a fight where he cut way too much weight, he comes back out for round 3 and puts up like 60 significant strikes in a single round, just laying the wood to this guy. Bing, 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 just beating him up all over the place. Damon Blackshere was fighting the fight of his life against Mario Bautista in a fight I picked him to win, by the way. And he went out there, takes him down. He's looking great, having a great fight. All is cool in the gang. And then he starts to get a little tie-tie, right? He starts to get a little bit tired. And then by the 3rd round, he just doesn't have it anymore. He's not the same guy, and Mario's taking over. And Mario's taking him down, and Mario's getting his pace going. And you're just like, I do think Damon might be a little bit of that kind of smoke and mirrors in that regard. Like, I think he's a good fighter, but I also worry about, like, where's that top line ceiling for him in the division? Because most of the time, you look through his record, he fought a real good guy, he lost that fight. You know what I mean? He fought a really worthy challenge. He lost that fight. So that for me is the one thing where I'm like seeing like this would be a big win for Damon Blackshere. This would be a step in the right direction. Like, hey, you got to take me seriously. You got to respect me as a potential contender, a guy working my way up. But right now I view him more as like fun action fighter, a guy who can go put on a show, but not a guy that I really view on like a championship trajectory at this current stage of the game. So, all right, man, let's see the face off here. Nothing too remarkable between these two guys. I would say they look similar in size, honestly. Like it doesn't look like a huge disparity in either direction. But again, the more sprightly young man is the 30-year-old here, Damon Blackshere, compared to 39-year-old dangerous Davy Grant.
Man, I wish Davy Grant was like, you know, my uncle or something. He seems like he's one of the funniest people alive.
I just pulled up a script or whatever, like the coding of the thing. I almost had a heart attack over here. We've got it back under control, though. And, yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Davy Grant seems like the best hang in the UFC. We're getting pints after he wins by knockout and shocks the world on Saturday in honor of Davy Grant. But with that being said, my man, we can move to this next fight on the card. We've got Carlos Leal looking to take out a different 40-year-old here. We got Muslim Salakov, you know, a guy – you know, not like Davy Grant, 39, you know, almost on that 40-year-old tipping point. No, he's already well over that, right? 41 years of age for Muslim Salakov. Still shows up, you know, working out hard, in shape, wants to fight, wants to be here. So you got to have a lot of respect for Muslim and the king of Kung Fu, what he still brings to the table, still knocking out younger fighters. But not knocking out good fighters, really, you know, knocking out some of the bottom of the barrel guys, some of the guys that really haven't made it in the UFC, haven't distinguished themselves at this level. And Carlos Leal on the other side, you know, what is it, 1-1 in the UFC? You know, the guy gets jobbed out of a fight that I think most of us agreed that he deserved the win there. He was a plus 190 underdog. A lot of us got involved on the money line. I'm sure that didn't contribute to why he got robbed. But in any case, you look at, you know, Rinat Fakhretdinov, he was clearly the local market fighter. They were supporting their guy, and it was a close enough fight that I guess I get where they're coming from. And then one guy gave it 30-27, and you're just like, oh, okay, so it was rigged from the beginning, right? They weren't even watching the fight. Okay, perfect. So when you look at, you know, a guy like Carlos Leal, I think he took the right message from that, which is fuck the judges. I'm going out there with a mission to kill. And I think, you know, some guys, right, are really hard to kill. You know, and that's their attribute. Dan Ige, right? He was hurt bad by Pitbull. He's been hurt bad before in his career. Bro, he's so hard to kill. Just so hard to get out of there, right? And Muslim Salakov does not fit that definition, right? He's been hurt before. He's been finished before. He's been taken out on the feet. I believe he's been submitted before as well. I'd have to go back and check the record there. But overall, you just look at a guy in Muslim Salakov, and it's respect to the guy. You know, he goes out there and, you know, makes his very low volume style work by getting guys respect and being tricky with his spins and kind of doing some unorthodox techniques. But I don't trust his wrestling. I don't trust his pace. I don't trust his chin and his durability anymore. And frankly, I don't trust his hand speed. If he's forced to box in exchanges with Carlos Leal, I think Leal will be getting to the target faster. I think he's got more pop on his punches. I think that he's juiced to the absolute fucking tits. And for all those reasons, I think Carlos Leal is going to knock him the fuck out. What do you think about this one, man?
Yeah, I think Carlos Leal may commit murder in the octagon.
We like to describe it as a violent crime.
Yeah, a very, very violent crime, and maybe career best for Carlos Leal also in terms of the scales. But he's always in shape. I think there was one fight in the PFL where he showed up a little bit overweight. I remember when we covered media, we were talking to him about it. He mentioned like an injury, but always juice to the gills. You can count on him to swing and bang. That's the one thing that I like about Carlos Leal is he goes out there and he applies pressure. And if you're going to receive pressure in the case of Muslim Salakov, someone who's low volume, who can be walked back, Leal's going to unload on you once you hit the cage. It's just how he fights. If you let him pressure you, he's just going to swing. Now, does he have the best defense in the world? No, but dude is durable, certified durable. I've seen him eat clean shots and clean head kicks in the PFL from Sadabusi, 3-round war. I believe he won that fight too. Or am I tripping? No, lost a split decision, and I thought he won.
I think he lost twice, and the second one was like the one that he should have won. This is off from memory.
Yes,
so I could
no, that is correct. That is correct. I remember I was covering that event too for the PFL, and I was really upset for him. But nonetheless, I do think that he goes out there and potentially finishes Salakov, or maybe just wins a very dominant decision. Who knows? Leal is someone to look out for in the division. I think he got robbed blind. I think if anyone got a 30-27, it was him against Fakhretdinov. That was crazy.
You know, he hasn't been submitted since 2017, but I do think like it is not an impossibility. I saw my guy Cam Junkin, put 3 units on Lial by KO -145. I would just advise that if you can, I think that the ITD is like -167. Like for 22 cents, I would not mind that, because the other thing is I always think about like how could a bet go wrong, right? And like I think Lial preferences the KO, but when you're fighting a 41-year-old and like imagine he's like beating him up against the cage and the ref's not stopping it, and it's like, am I gonna just beat up this old man until like, you know, it's like now I'm a bad guy, like I'm a piece of shit, or am I just gonna put a choke on him and, you know, we all go home happy and, you know, he gets to get out of here and we shake hands on that. So I feel like Lial, you know, is normally a marauding, killing savage, but I do think in this case, like he could maybe pull back a little bit, be like, oh, king of kung fu, I don't need to do this to him, man. Put the rear naked choke on him, get him out of there. So I'm hoping for your sake he just goes out there and throws the hands. The other thing I'll note here, guys, if I was like looking at strategies for playing this fight, I'm going to have a betting strategy guide that I publish later today. I got to go write it up after this. I've been back and forth to jiu-jitsu, but when I'm looking at like how I would bet on this fight, I did mention earlier in the week on Patreon, like the under 1.5, the under 2.5. For me, like I look at Lial is probably going to come out here super aggressive, look to get the finish. Don't want to mess around with the scorecards here. But in addition to that, like how does Muslim win this fight? Like I look at, you know, you mentioned Carlos Leal can take a hell of a shot. How do you put down a guy who's got an incredible chin? Like spinning kick them in the head or some shit, you know, it's like knock them the fuck out. Like, you know, don't give them much of a chance, right? And there's very few and far between shots that Muslim Salakov throws that aren't like high impact, like looking to hurt people and take them out. So I think that that's the kind of thing where, you know, how does Muslim win this fight? Maybe a split decision, robbery, grossness, right? But I think, you know, more often than not, it would be like he steps offline, throws a crazy spinning kick. Lial is like running in like super aggressive, just trying to, you know, hit him and gets caught on the chin. But I don't think that's super high percentage. I just think like, again, you could get very similar prices on the under 2.5 rounds to like Lial inside the distance and these kind of things. And it's like Muslim is not like incapable of fighting. He's just old and not very durable anymore and probably will slow down if the fight you know, starts to pick up steam. So all those things make me think Lial by KO. That's my prediction here. But I also just wanted to give you guys those caveats of like how I think of my strategy. I'd rather lay, you know, 15, 20 more cents of juice in that case to get more outcomes, more win equity than I would to, you know, pigeonhole myself for 22 cents when then he goes out there, gets the rear naked choke and I'm devastated. And I'll just give you guys examples. Like I'm pretty sure Jared Gooden was like on the verge of being out and then submitted Wellington Turman, right? And like when you look back, like there's let me just double check that that's the result, right? Am I right about that? I'm 99% sure that I'm right about that. And I'm pulling it up on Tapology. Yes, guys. So he got submitted by Jared Gooden there, right? And when you look back at that, like there's very little in the data that would suggest Jared Gooden is going to go out there and look for a choke. The guy who's better at jiu-jitsu, the guy who's got more credentials, all those things is the other fighter. But when somebody gets hurt, it changes everything, right? Like then it doesn't really matter anymore. And just like that's kind of how I see it with Lial. It's like he might hurt this guy, fall him to the ground, and then just shit happens, right? The guy sticks his neck in, you know, you just squeeze a hold of him and that's it. So alas, we can move along unless you got anything to add here, my brother.
No, not at all. I think it's a pretty straightforward fight. Absolutely.
Just wanted to give one to the king of Kung Fu. I do it myself on the show frequently, so I had to absolutely shout out our guy. That's some old school martial arts-ish right there. And the face-off, nothing too crazy to write home about here. I will just say Lial looks like he's got a big back. I'm sure he's got a lot of back knee on there, a little bit out of frame here, and that's always a good thing for his money line backers. So God bless and good luck. It should be a fun fight. Two guys that like to mix it up on the feet.
Dude has a back like Buzz Lightyear. To infinity and beyond. It's about to fly.
Goes on for days. Next up, my man, we got Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell taking on Saeed Nurmagomedov. And I got to level with you, my man. Like, I've been of two minds on this fight. When I look at Bryce Mitchell, like, he can wrestle well from the body lock. He's got some real skills in those positions. He flat backed in E-game multiple times to the full mount. If he does that to Saeed Nurmagomedov, he could set himself up for a dominant performance here. Look like $1 million. But I've also seen Bryce Mitchell go out there and shoot, low line takedowns and kind of put his head and his neck in vulnerable positions. And he's done it more than once, right? If you look at that Gene Silva fight, not only did Gene Silva finish him with the ninja choke, he actually had multiple deep bites on front headlock chokes before that. And he even guard pulled one that looked like it was going to get him. And Bryce Mitchell had to lose his shorts in order to survive, right? When you look at Saeed Nurmagomedov, I think one detail people miss, like people say, like, I don't know how he keeps doing this to people. Like, one way that guys get really good with that front headlock series is having a good hip transfer. And what I mean by that is, like, somebody's on this side where they feel comfortable, right? And you kind of bounce their head back out into space, so they have to try and drive forward again. And in that process, you can now start pulling at their chin. You can now start catching space and then try and go, to a deeper position on that front headlock. And the thing that makes Saeed Nurmagomedov so devastating with that hold is he's not really looking for the guillotine, guys. He's not really looking to guard pull at all, right? The way he does it structurally, he's trying to get very deep bites on elbow deep, punch his arm all the way across, and now all you could try and do is roll. And if you do not roll all the way against the elbow joint and like force them to re-grip and like break their grip, it doesn't matter if you roll. They will roll with you and then stay on top and finish you. So that's why the ninja choke is so dangerous and effective. And that's exactly what happened to Bryce in the last one, right? By the time he realized, hey, my head's stuck in the hole, he went to roll. Gene rolled with him. Fight was over shortly thereafter. And I think that Saeed Nurmagomedov has the fundamentals down of, like, if you put your head in the wrong spot, I'm going to get you. And I'm 99% sure I'll go pull it up to make sure that I'm not speaking out of my tuchus here. But I think that I wrote in my notes Saeed Nurmagomedov by ninja choke against Saeed Yakub Kakramanov, who's a guy that I really respect, a guy who's extremely talented on the ground, a guy who pushes a very hellacious wrestling pace, and a guy that is really good at wrestling. Like, I think better at wrestling than Bryce Mitchell. Like, not trying to break news or like say something crazy, but I think Bryce is maybe a better top positional grappler. Like, I respect Bryce's top game. I think he's a very good grappler, but Saeed Yakub is a very, very good wrestler. He's an excellent wrestler, right? And he was dominating Saeed Nurmagomedov wrestling for wrestling, position for position. He made one mistake. He hung his head for one second too long. And that was what I kind of knew in the back of my head. Like, that's what this guy is. And I'm a guy that likes to play front headlocks. I love when guys shoot. I'm like, please, like, give me these opportunities, because otherwise I have to force them. Otherwise I have to try and pull you in. I got to try and make some things happen, right? Where it's like, you're going to give me what I want. You're going to put your head right here on my hip so I can try and bump you out, create a hip transfer, give some space, right? Again, if you ever watch somebody grapple, a headlock, right? A really good guillotine and ninja choke and all that isn't just done with your hands. It's done with your hips. It's done by not letting somebody get a clean hold on your leg, pressuring down, driving into them, pushing their head and their neck down. Now they're in a compromised spot. Now you switch to your choke. Now you finish with a lock. It's like, that is when a really good technician is going. So in the first 7.5 minutes of this fight, Bryce Mitchell, I think, is one mistake away from getting finished. You know what I mean? Like, that's honestly how I see it. Like, on the feet, Saeed hits very hard. He can throw those spin kicks from very close distance. He can throw them to multiple targets on the body. And Bryce Mitchell's striking defense is not very sophisticated. It's not very good, in my humble opinion, right? A lot of just jittery movements behind his hands. What he does is put out offense, right? Go out there, throw side kicks to the leg. Go out there, throw out a jab a little bit, get somebody backing up, and then try and work your takedowns. He's got a game, He's spent some time out in Abu Dhabi. He's trying to do things right. But again, he's working with downtown TJ Brown. He's working with guys that are just all right, And how many of these guys are giving him like black belt level technique to go out there and apply at this level? And I'm not super sold on it, right? It just doesn't feel to me like I can trust Bryce Mitchell. So I'm going to show the weigh-ins. We're going to talk about that as well. We're going to hear from Wizz. Maybe he can convince me otherwise. But I do think of this as a fight where, like, I don't love the money line on either guy. Like, I don't feel like I want to lay chalk with Bryce to find out in his new weight class coming off of a devastating loss. And also on the Nurmagomedov side, I like plus money, but it's very short plus money. And he's a guy that doesn't check my ABCs. Say always bet on cardio box. He's a guy that can be outworked. He's allowed it to happen multiple times in the UFC. But in terms of durability, he's never been finished. Bryce Mitchell's been finished on a number of occasions, right? So again, I just have to start to look back, and it's like Nurmagomedov, I think, is probably if he's able to defend any takedowns in the first round, I think he can win that round. I think he's the more damaging fighter of the two. But I also think Bryce can take over as the fight goes on. I've seen Bryce get his eyes smashed, his orbital bleeding. It's like half hanging out against Dan Ige, and he's still plying his craft, working his game. Doctor comes in, doesn't stop it. He keeps going. He keeps getting after him, takes him down in the third round as well. So Bryce Mitchell could use his physicality, be effective at this weight class. But for me, it's a prove-it spot for Bryce Mitchell. And on the other side, the only thing I'd really consider betting on this fight, and something I did consider betting, Saeed Nurmagomedov by submission plus 420. Saeed Nurmagomedov, blaze it. Saeed Nurmagomedov, ninja choke 50-1. And just hope that something good happens, right? No, most of the time on his record, they label it the guillotine, right? They don't label it the ninja choke. But when I just look at how their skills match up, like Bryce is probably going to put himself in one or two of those dangerous situations unless he's made radical improvements to his game from the last fight to this fight. And Saeed Nurmagomedov, like, he doesn't have to make a radical improvement, a radical change to his game, in my opinion, to have an opportunity to choke this guy silly. He just needs to get one opportunity and close the show. So, yeah, and my guy Cam said the ninja choke got steamed down to 13-1. I'm glad some people in the Patreon hit it very early in the week and sent it in the chat. That's awesome. I can't bet it here in New York. Fucking devastating. But I at least feeding families. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to feed families. I think that Nurmagomedov, he's a super dangerous guy with the whole front choke series. But beyond that, he does have some power, that has to be reckoned with as well. One thing I've noted when guys cut down to 135 sometimes, from 145, same thing, 35 to 25, their chin doesn't always come with them. That's one thing that I'm definitely going to be watching this space for Bryce Mitchell. I remember Kevin Kroom, blast from the past, guys, an absolute legendary pull if you guys have been watching UFC for a while. But Kevin Kroom cut down all this weight, and guys, he got touched like one time on the chin and was doing the salsa dance, brother. He just was not able to take a shot at all. It was like, oh, this guy doesn't have water in his brain. Like, literally, you just saw him get touched, and he's like, scrambled all over the place. So I think that's something you got to be worried about with guys' first weight cut. I think Bryce had the weight to lose. Like, I don't think he's a massive guy. I think this is all, well done in terms of he did it the right way, prepared the right way. But it's still, for me, an unknown. What do you think about this fight, my brother? I kick it over to you.
I will be honest. I think this is the exact archetype of a fight that I usually choose to not bet on. For a lot of reasons. There's a lot of unknowns. How does Bryce look moving down in weight? That is number one. Obviously, he was never the biggest 145er. He always looked like he could have shed a couple more pounds. Number two, was he the most durable guy in the world? He got dropped a few times by Ige, but survived, so credit to him. Moving down in a weight class how does that affect his cardio? He's always been able to push through. In that Ige fight, he wasn't really hurt, so cardio in round 3 didn't look the best. But at the same time, coming down a weight class could either do him and serve him really well, which due to the reasons that he's cutting extra weight, he's working out a little bit more. He has to exert a little bit more effort, so he is more likely to have better cardio. Now, how does that energy expenditure change at 135 is the question. Because he's going to be facing someone who obviously isn't as strong as he is, but does the strength come down to him? There's just a lot of questions on the Bryce side. And then with Saeed is someone who is, I would say, pretty game to win round 1 in fights where he's evenly lined, I would say, because he has some good striking. Round 1, obviously, you don't have to worry about the gas tank fading away. He does have the threat with the ninja choke, so people are kind of scared to shoot on him, which allows him to open up striking even more. And Bryce, what does he have to offer on the feet? Not much. Bryce is someone who I just generally do not like betting on because he does not train with the highest level of training partners, as you mentioned, like AJ Cunningham, TJ Brown. Like he's not really training at a gym. And that's just, to me, an IQ thing. If it wasn't for the IQ thing, then I think he would get himself into some, a respectful room. With all that being said, I do think that the better fighter here is Saeed Nurmagomedov. I would predict him to win this fight, but I will not be sweating a Saeed Nurmagomedov money line in the 3rd round when he's huffing and puffing against Bryce Mitchell, who has magically has the best cardio in the game now, is able to take this guy down over and over again and zap his energy and not somehow get ninja choked. So all of that word jumble is why I'm not betting this fight. There's so many different directions I can see this fight going in. I could see a decision for either guy. I could see a submission for Saeed. I could see a submission for Bryce when when Saeed is gassed out late in the fight, around 3 submission worth a poke. And then I could see maybe a Saeed knockout if Bryce's chin doesn't last. So yeah, big pass.
One thing I wanted to note here is just that, like, the reason I kind of lean towards Saeed by sub is I like betting the sub more if I know the other guy's going to try and push the wrestling and the grappling. And I bet Gene Silva by sub pretty close to close there at like 20-1 or whatever against Bryce. And it was just because, like, Bryce is going to try and grapple, right? Bryce is going to try and wrestle. He also got submitted, guys, by Brad Katona. Let's never forget that. Brad Katona has finished like 0 fighters since then, right? Like it's something to at least keep in the back of our minds. So I think that, wisdom says like, hey, you know what, Bryce should have the better cardio here. But I also just think to myself, like we've seen even in round 2, as the fight gets extended, as Saeed's getting a little tired, he makes one adjustment, fight's over. So I kind of feel like he's going to find the trap card. I feel like Bryce might look good until he loses. You know what I mean? One of those kind of fights, but that's how I see it. All right, brother. Next up, we've got the first main card fight of the night. It's kicking off with these light heavyweights, and I got to just say my hat is off to Nikita Krylov, one of the most effective DraftKings players I've seen in, like studying these fights, right? I write about DraftKings stuff for Roto Grinders. And looking at Nikita Krylov's scoring is just ridiculous. Like the guy basically goes out there and puts up 100 points every time he wins. Like he's just very consistent and reliable to put on a really high score in a win. And that's because he normally goes out there and finishes somebody or dominates with like 9-10 minutes of top control, like left no doubt type of thing. And then when he's losing, it tends to be to champions, challengers, like top level guys in the division for the most part. And when I look at Bogdan Guskov, man, I've been like the biggest Bogdan Guskov proponent, I feel like, since he got to the UFC. Like I bet him against Volkan Ozdemir, looked like an asshole. Fair enough. Bet him against what's his name? I didn't bet him against Palga because that fight I literally was like, I'm going to wait and see if this Bogdan guy is any good or if I was just insane. He goes out there and knocks out Palga. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Then the next fight, he goes out there as a big-ish dog against Span, and I got back involved. I'm like, dude, no way. Like, I gotta go with this. and he goes out there and gets the finish, does what he needs to do. But we know that Bogdan Guskov is like kind of a liability on the mat, right? Like if Billy Elakana is just taking you down and taking your back for 3.5 minutes to start the fight, like that's a huge red flag, until Billy proves that he's a UFC level guy, right? Nikita Krylov's a UFC level guy. I think we'd all agree on that, right? So is he washed? I don't know. He's 33. He's had a shit ton of fights. Like he hasn't been as active lately. Those are all concerns. But prior to that knockout loss against Dom Reyes, a big, powerful puncher, a devastating guy, he was on a 3-fight win streak. So he had been out for 2 years, but he was on a 3-fight win streak. So you look at Bogdan Guskov, his 3 wins in the UFC. That matches about what Nikita Krylov had done in that recent little stretch. Nikita Krylov has double-digit wins in the UFC. He's got submissions. He's got an ability to go out there and even knock people out. It's been a little while, but he's head kicked guys. He sent them to the shadow realm before as well. So I feel like Bogdan Guskov is better than a bunch of the really, really bad light heavyweights on this roster, and he will continue to get wins. He will even continue to get better because he's still gathering that experience. He's had 20 fights. Krylov's had 40 fights. And I think he could knock him out. That's, for me, Bogdan's path in this fight, knock him out in the first 2 rounds. But I think that, I expect Nikita Krylov to dominate him on the ground. And, like, if he can't do that, he's not the same guy, in my view, that he used to be. So I do think Nikita Krylov's a bag fumbler. I've kind of shit on him in the past for, making bad decisions, kind of being a bonehead. But you just look at his body of work. It dwarfs what Bogdan Guskov has accomplished in MMA so far. And on top of that, like, you see, like, style clashes, like, guy who can really wrestle and grapple, guy who fucking can't. And again, I think Guskov, he's opportunistic. He's trying to get better, but it's just 2 different levels, right? So for me, I think Krylov should win this fight by submission more often than not. How about you, my brother?
I think it's a very volatile fight. I could see this fight playing out in a couple of ways, mainly 3. I think it's either Guskov KO or an ITD for Krylov. It's simple there. But it's more of, is Nikita Krylov's chin really gone? I think that is the ultimate question that a lot of people are trying to answer. So Krylov, last time out, he was moved for 2 years, hasn't fought in a while, got instantly sparked. Not like the worst guy. But Guskov is someone who does hit hard. He has shown, improvement in IQ. And he's definitely, someone that can go out there and knock you the fuck out. Against Elakana, it had some shaky moments getting his back taken there against someone who I do not rate that highly in the grappling game. So Nikita Krylov is able to get this fight to the mat, and I think he'd be wise to do so early and often. I think he wins this fight, 8 out of 10. Yeah. So I think it's a Krylov spot, but at -200, do you want to lay the juice on someone who last time out didn't really show you the best? I would pass. I would look to play unders. I would parlay the fight doesn't go to distance. I think that's a solid look. Violence is the way I think this fight goes, and dogger pass on the money line side though.
Well, if he gets the bonus in this one, I have a feeling he's booking his next flight to Turkey, and you guys can use your context clues to figure out why he would do something like that. But in either case, I do think, Krylov looks like he's in pretty good shape here. I think he's going to be motivated to come back and have a better performance after kind of shitting the bed in his last one against Dom Reyes. And, I think he's going to have opportunities here. So if Bogdan Guskov, escapes from a back take, 4 minutes deep in the first round, maybe you want to live click the Bogdan Guskov side. But for me, like, I would want over 2-1 definitely to get involved with Guskov. So I also just don't feel like laying chalk with Nikita Krylov. I think that Krylov, kind of like Damon Blackshere, how does he pay off this price? How does he look like a big favorite? I think it would be he goes out there and submits this guy, takes him into the ground. So ultimately, that would be the way I click it, or just pass on that side. But from a daily fantasy perspective, guys, I just want to note, I think you basically need to roster this fight because number one, decent chance it ends inside the first round. Number two, decent chance it ends inside the first 2 rounds. Number three, very good chance it ends in the first 3 rounds. And then you look at if Nikita Krylov wins this fight, he's been a prolific scorer on the platform. His style is like built for DraftKings scoring. And then Bogdan Guskov on the other side, I think he's put up 90 plus points in all 3 of his UFC victories. So if he's to go out there and get a win here, probably a knockout, probably early, first 2 rounds. So again, just seems like scoring, like somebody's going to put up a big score in this fight. I'd be kind of surprised if they don't. So that's what I got for you guys on this one, but we can move along to the next fight on the main card where Asu Almabayev is going to be taking on.
Look at the gills on that dude. That's why he's going to win.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, fighters with gills immediately winning. Guskov, and then coming up right here, Jose Ochoa, Mr. Gills himself. You'll see in the face-off.
I love it. But here we go, man. We got 2 flyweights here. Asu Almabayev, the more experienced guy, the more experienced UFC guy. But Jose Ochoa looks to be the real deal Holyfield as a prospect, just 24 years of age, shootbox Diego Lima product. He had finishes on the regional scene. The guy has not lost a fight yet inside the distance, 8-0 in fights that end ITD. His one loss, a competitive decision against another undefeated prospect at the time and still undefeated, right? Jose Ochoa lost that undefeated rank to Lonnie Kavanaugh, but Lonnie Kavanaugh, again, looks to be the real deal. He looks to be a very talented fighter. So Asu Almabayev back on the proving ground, lost to Manel Cap. That was a very important fight for his career, didn't go his way, but now he gets another opportunity to right the ship. He was supposed to fight Ramazan Temirov. For me, that was the promotion, basically, writing, the death warrant on Asu Almabayev, no disrespect, but that's kind of how I saw it. I thought they were like, yeah, this guy's not who we're trying to promote anymore. Let's promote this other kid, Temirov. And then Temirov popped hot for the drugs that he was obviously on, and that was how that went. So when you look at, this fight, man, I'm curious on your thoughts. Ochoa, what he lacks in experience, he makes up for in aggression. How do you feel about this one?
I'm never going to be a fan of Asu Almabayev type fighters for one reason. It's because they only know the wrestling. The hands of Asu Almabayev are not really all that impressive to me. I think he doesn't really put together combinations all that well. And sure, in the wrestling department, dude is highly skilled. No doubt about it. So if he gets that going in this fight, he should be able to dominate, I think. But I think it's a big ask. You're asking someone to execute their strongest skill. You have to expect that Jose Ochoa, I understand it's on short notice, but Jose Ochoa is going to be able to, prepare for what Asu has to offer, because it's kind of obvious. So if he's able to sprawl and brawl, he's prepared for an opponent who, is somewhat similar with Cody Durden, but Cody Durden also has hands. This time he doesn't really have to worry about the striking all that much. Has the measurables advantage in this fight. I personally side with Ochoa here, but I do understand why the line is close, because if Almabayev finds success in the takedowns, and we will find out very quickly, then it might be not an early night for Ochoa, but I think he just gets drowned. But I do think the aggression of Ochoa backing Asu down, similar to how Manel Cap was able to back him down, I think the pressure will help in this fight. The way that he fights is the style that you want against a guy like Asu. So yeah, I think Ochoa wins this fight, but close.
Yeah, man, when I looked into this fight, Asu Almabayev, he's gone 1 for 12 on takedowns in his last 2 fights. He has faced, or I should say he's conceded 2 submission attempts in his last 3 fights. And the one fight that he didn't concede a submission attempt was against Manel Cap, when he was getting bounced around like a basketball. So I definitely think Asu Almabayev, he kind of got put on notice. I would say in some ways he got exposed. The guy does not have very high volume when he's striking on the feet. In many ways, Mateus Nicolau fought a really, really bad fight against him, right? Like, he didn't go out there and throw a lot of volume. He just stood there watching, right? When he did try to throw, the worst part of his game came out, which is that he gets touched on the chin, right? And Mateus Nicolau was having a lot of success against Asu Almabayev. In round 2, he was taking over. He got a beautiful guillotine choke locked in. Asu Almabayev had to take off his trousers to get out of that choke. Then Mateus Nicolau inexplicably just lets him off the hook on the feet. Like, hey, yeah, take your time. Put your pants back on. Are you good? we're ready. Okay. Like, just gives him all the time in the world to recover after he just had his neck squeezed very tight. That's a great opportunity to jump on somebody with strikes. So again, Nicolau just fumbled the bag. He's had a career of that, unfortunately. And, he's a good fighter, but when you look at what Matheus Nicolau doesn't do, he doesn't do enough offense. He doesn't put himself in a position to blow somebody out of the water. He fights very close and hopes for the best, and his chin doesn't always hold up. So he's had some real flaws, especially when he fought good fighters. And the Asu Amabayev fight, guys, was like this close, right? Like, Asu did the right thing, hurt him in the third round, basically won him the fight. Nicolau kind of played from his back there. He knew he had lost it. But when you look at Ochoa, I think he's more durable than Nicolau, right? He's not as talented in terms of credentialing in jiu-jitsu, right? Nicolau knows more. He's going to hit more barimbolos and shit like this, right? But when you look at, is this guy like capable of hurting somebody? Yes. Is this guy willing to throw down in the pocket? Yes. Is this guy, a really aggressive fighter? Yeah. Does he have good cardio? Yes. Like, I kind of like a lot of the check boxes that I've seen from Jose Ochoa. On the other side, Asu Amabayev, guys, I'm going to pull up the measurables in a second, and we'll show the face-off here. He's not a very big man. He's a very small flyweight. And, Manel Cap, was kind of bigger than him, kind of big dogging him, and Manel's not a big guy either. And when you look at how he's going to match up with this Ochoa kid, like, it's going to give him some opportunities to get in on takedown attempts. But I've seen Ochoa on the regional scene be very diligent about working to snatch front headlocks, about working to push somebody away and punish with strikes, about looking for elbows, punches, looking to get extended at the hips as opposed to getting your hips kind of funneled together and knocked over, barreled over like a tree. He's getting wide. He's trying to get his leg long to push you to the end of the lever. He's doing a lot of the things right that you need to do to defend takedowns. So again, this is a real test of his abilities, right? I understand why he's a dog in this spot, but I will also note I did get involved with the sub prop at 14-1 on, the side of the guy that people don't expect to be the better grappler, right? Jose Ochoa. I'll just explain the reason why. And I hope that this photo is a bit illustrative, right? If you remove the hat from our guy Asu Amabayev, his head is about at the nose of Jose Ochoa, right? The guy's going to be shooting a lot of takedowns. That's what we know about the guy. He goes out there, tries to press the wrestling and the grappling advantage, doesn't throw many significant strikes. So he kind of needs that part of his game to be functional. And when you look at Ochoa, on the regional scene, guys, not only did he finish a front choke, it's the only win of his career by submission, but he picked up his opponent, elevated him off the ground, walked him in, and now his opponent can't even get 2 feet back onto the ground. He's forcing him head into the chest, lifting him off the ground. He's strong. He's juiced, in my opinion. He's a kid that is going to be getting better and better fight over fight. He was a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. At the time, he's strangling this dude, lifting him up in the middle of the cage, right? He's working with Charles Oliveira, Shootbox Diego Lima, high-level professionals, guys that know what they're doing, guys that are going to help him get better on the mat. Because where he's already good? On the feet. He's a killer on the feet. He can hit very hard on the feet. Lonnie Kavanaugh was like, yo, let's clinch a little. Let's mix it up in a couple different phases, because this guy was getting to him a little bit on the feet at times. And Lonnie did the better, cleaner work overall. But you just look at Ochoa, and that was a first fight. That was a, hey, get your feet wet. Now he's a guy that's starting to build that confidence, starting to build that momentum. And if I'm booking this division, right, I'm circling Asu Amabayev as a guy that's a pretender, not a contender. And I could be proven wrong about that. But the reason I'm saying it is because he is low volume. He is not very dangerous. He has submitted one guy in the UFC who's 0-3 career to the submission in the UFC, Ode Osborne, right? Never won a fight by submission in the UFC, submitted 3 times in the UFC. That's the truth. So you just have to say, like, okay, he can submit guys that are bottom of the barrel, submission grapplers for the UFC level. And then what else can he do? Maybe wrestle a guy to a decision, a close one, Maybe go out there and kind of get some muted volume from Matheus Nicolau and go to another close decision. I just look at this like Ochoa's going to go out there, put out more violent offense. He's going to be aggressive from the opening bell. He's a guy that can push hard for 15 minutes. I do question that a bit about Amabayev. And then I think that he's going to be opportunistic with submissions in his own right. If Amabayev puts his head in the wrong place, he might get introduced to a ninja choke from Jose Ochoa. So for me, man, I like Jose Ochoa. And the things I'm looking at, late round props, You know, I do think Asu's a good fighter. So could Asu get a takedown or two? I definitely think so. But I just think Ochoa can work his way back up to his feet, stay smart, stay disciplined, keep a hand on a wrist, get back up to your feet. And I think Asu Amabayev might start having some doubt in his mind. You know, I don't think he's going to want that smoke on the feet at all, personally. So let's see how he does. Let's see how he manages here.
I'm going to say one thing. Very bold. Round 1 knockout.
Damn. There you go. And I do think it's possible. I'm hoping that he cashes the 14-0 submission prop, though. I will say this. The reason I bet it, if I didn't make it clear, right, besides the height and the dynamics, is if this guy gets hurt and he's not out, right, I think he's going to shoot. I think he's going to shoot desperately. I think he's going to shoot right away. If he gets buzzed on the chin one time, I think he's shooting for his life. And I think Ochoa has seen that before, and I think he's going to be ready for it. So that's the way I feel. But, man, I'm fired up for this one. This should be a great fight. Next up, my man, we got Shara Magomedov taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. And I just wanted to address in the chat, does it look like Shara Magomedov has a staph infection on his chest? If so, how does that impact the fight? During ceremonial weigh-in, it looked like TV was trying to avoid his chest. Let's go ahead and see what photograph they have provided. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and guess that he has a staph infection on his chest, because this is the fucking photo that they provided for media day. And it's like the most zoomed in photo of his face. Guys, compare this to his opponent, Marc-Andre Barriault, who they've shown in a normal full screen so you can actually see his body. What I would tell you guys is if you've never had staph before, you require medication, right? Antibiotics. And antibiotics sap your energy, you know, and you definitely don't feel like the same version of yourself. So if he's on antibiotics, I do think he's liable to gas out more quickly. You know, that's not good, right? Like ABC say always bet on cardio. Staph infections are like anti-cardio. And on top of that, like, you want to have a bulletproof mentality in a fight. You know, you want to know I could push myself, I can go hard, I could do these things. And it's another mental barrier as well as everything else. So it would be enough for me to stay off the minus 600, right? I think Marc-Andre Barriault pushes a decent pace. He knows, you know, where his bread is buttered, but he's also a guy that his style necessitates standing in front of you, you know, being there to be hit. And that's not a great recipe either. Like, I do think it's possible Marc-Andre Barriault just gets head kicked in the first like 30 seconds of this fight, you know, like he's going to stand in front of me, so I'm going to put up a head kick right away. And, you know, it definitely could be possible. But shout out to Cam in the chat. Barriault came close to killing a guy. I ain't betting this one. He's the first guy to ever knock out Bruno Silva. I know the jokes about Bruno doesn't want to fight and all these things. I think that's true, honestly. But he also smashed a hole in his head, right? So Marc-Andre Barriault is a fighter. He's a man, right? He goes out there, throws hard, looks to put people in the clinch, beat people up. Bro, I would not want to fucking clinch a guy who had staph. I'll just tell you that. That's fucking disgusting. So it's a weird fight, and I probably won't have any money on this one at all. My gut instinct, though, is just like fight not to go the distance. Like, the other thing is, like, if your cardio is really not there, you might come out and just throw everything and try and get somebody out of there. Think Benoit Saint Denis and Dustin Poirier. He literally gave everything he had in 7 minutes. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. But ultimately, I don't have much more information than that. I will look into trying to find pictures of the real thing, but I'm sure that state media over there is probably not going to be too keen on sharing real, legitimate information. So.
Yes, this fight, it's a fight. I think there's multiple ways to play this, and it's for both sides. I'm not really going to try and break down the matchup. I think it's very clear. We have a kicker versus someone who is more of a brawler, likes to get up in your face, clinch with you, hockey punches, and clinch up and put you against the cage. And that's what you need to do to beat Shara. If Shara is able to keep you on the outside and keep his distance, kick you, and then keep moving, you're going to lose. Just a boring decision, or he's going to knock you out. And in the case of Marc-Andre Barriault, he does not have the best durability. So looking at Shara, though, speaking of the staff, it's something that you have to pay attention to, because it's going to zap the cardio. And I think if he gets a KO, it'll be a round 1 knockout, because I think as the fight goes on, his style requires him to exert a lot of energy with those kicks. So it's going to definitely zap the power away, and I could see him either winning a decision or a round 1 knockout. You look on the Barriault side, if he doesn't get knocked out and he is able to push Shara against the cage and have his way in the clinch and really dominate with the hockey punches and land some good combos, I think he can win a decision as well. My prediction is a Marc-Andre Barriault decision in this fight. I think he's going to be able to outlast Shara Bullet here, and I think he's going to be able to use the vet savvy. I just personally am not someone who is high on the skill set of Shara Magomedov, even though like I'm a big supporter of Muay Thai, and I love the knees and the clinch. I love the kicking from range because that's similar to how I fight, but dude has no hands. And if you don't really put hands with those kicks, you're going to be able to win fights for so long, but then you're going to have to hit a point where fighters are just too savvy to it and too smart and know how to avoid and defend well against these kind of shots. They really will just not respect your hands at all and only watch for kicks. So for me, I think it's a Barriault decision or a round 1 knockout for Shara.
Yeah, the one thing I did want to note here is like MVP is such a weird style. Like he's very elusive. He's very hard to hit. That's like the number one difficulty people have with him. So the way you get to a guy like him is like you grapple him, right? You grab a hold of him because otherwise, like you're just never going to find him, right? He's gone all night. Like his footwork, he's too in and out. He's too floaty. He's too bouncy. Kind of like vintage Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, right? When you look at a guy like MAB, he's like the exact opposite. Like stand here, come forward, grab a hold of you, right? Get in your face. And I do think that there is like merit to like he could go out there and put hands on this guy and beat him up a little bit and work him to the body and slow him down over time. I think we saw Oleksiejczuk have some success wrestling this guy. Like, if MAB is smart, like he could definitely submit this guy, in my opinion. Like, I just don't think that that's how he fights. He's like he's an anti staller. He's an anti-grappler. He's a guy that's like, I want to go out there, push this freaking fight into the clinch, and then beat somebody up in the clinch. And I do think that, again, is it possible? Yes. Is it a path? Yes. Dog or pass situation in the money line situation? Yes. But I do think for MAB, like the difficulties here, probably getting fucked if this goes 15, unless he makes it obvious, unless he like blows him out of the water. Like it's one thing to give it to MVP, who's another big star and, whatever. MAB is like a company guy, right? A guy with a losing record in the promotion. And on the Shara side, like, again, the Armen Petrosyan win. I rate out Armen Petrosyan as like slightly better than MAB. Not like leaps and bounds, like 10 degrees, like, just minor, right? Like, I think he's a more technical guy. I think he's a guy that kind of has maybe slightly better wins even. I think he beat RoboCop in the UFC, right? So when I look at how these two guys match up, the best version of Shara, I think, knocks out MAB. I don't know if we're getting that best version. So that's enough for me to just pump the brakes on this fight. Next up, my man, we got the co-main event of the evening. I love watching Petr Yan fight. I said before that I truly believe like one of the most aesthetic fighters, like does so many things beautifully. The takedowns, they're unbelievable, right? His ability to mix in combinations and go from one to the other, to catch what somebody's throwing at him, bop, bop, and then throw back, right? Carlos Condit is like another guy that comes to mind with that, right? Like block, throw back, and then go to your combinations. Petr Yan does that, but instead of the untraditional craziness that Condit brought, it's all very tight. It's all looking like, wow, what a nice combination. Oh, he's going to the body like a boxer. Like he just does a lot of things that look beautiful. If you're a combat sports fan, you watch a lot of these fights. Some guys just are effective by being ugly, right? Nothing wrong with ugly fighting that wins. Shout out to Andreas Gustafsson, right? Grab a hold of the guy, fucking knee him in the body a million times. That works, right? If it works, it works. But Petr Yan, it's the smoothness, it's the timing, it's the ease of movement. He does a lot of things beautifully. Marcus McGee is a little bit more on the other side of the spectrum, right? He doesn't do things ugly, right? He has his own kind of pretty game. He can do some interesting kicks and some dynamic movements, but he also can just dump. He can also just get in somebody's face and start throwing hands, wailing on him a little bit. He can surprise somebody with a takedown, right? But if you said to me, like, skill for skill, who's the better wrestler? Petr Yan. Who's the better grappler? Petr Yan. Who's the better striker? I think it's more of a competitive, situation, but I would also go Petr Yan. So it's hard to make a case for somebody when I think like they're kind of worse in all categories. But the things that I will say is, who's the better athlete? I would say Marcus McGee is the better athlete. Who is the guy that's a little bit bigger? Marcus McGee is a little bit bigger. And then who's the guy that might be hungrier for this opportunity on Saturday? That might be Marcus McGee as well. Like, everything he's worked for in his career has kind of brought him to this moment. Whereas for Petr Yan, this is like a fight of his career. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a very big, like, oh my God, like everything in my life rides on this. Is like, no, he's a former champion. This is like probably the lowest profile fight he's been in some time. And the one thing that does jump out on his resume, you look back at the judges' scorecards, like MMAdecisions.com, right? Song Yadong unanimously loses the first round, has to rally in 2 and 3. You look at the fight with Aljamain Sterling. Second fight, right? We stopped that fight after 3 rounds. 2 judges give it 30-27 to Aljo. 1 judge gives it 29-28 to Aljo. It was a unanimous decision for Aljamain Sterling. And then rounds 4 and 5, Petr Yan takes back over. Corey Sandhagen, several years back when he was still trying to, build up his profile and not the fighter he is today, in my humble opinion, right? A lesser version of Corey, took the first round off Petr Yan. And then Petr Yan came back to blank him the next 4 rounds, right? But it's just that kind of thing where the guy likes to go out there and, take a little time and download a little data. He didn't do it as much against Figueiredo. I would argue he even let Figueiredo back into the back half of the fight more than I expected, right? Like, I thought he was dominating early. I was like, he's going to finish this guy. And then he kind of let him off the hook a little bit, So I think of this fight as fascinating, right? Like, why did they match make this fight? Why did they book this? Like, I think that, you could make a case like maybe they're trying to get Petr Yan an explosive finish, an exciting win, something, hey, you're stepping down in competition, go blow this guy out of the water, remind people you're a world-class fighter. You should be fighting in these championship opportunities. You should be getting the winner of Merab and Corey. But on the other side, it's like, hey, how do we inject some fresh blood into this division? We did it once before, right? Sean O'Malley, 1 fight, and now you're the next guy up, right? 1 big fight against Petr Yan, 1 big credibility ceiling win, even if it's a split decision. And now we can move you up the ladder and you get the title shots and you get the huge opportunities. And I don't know that the UFC is behind Marcus McGee like that. I don't think they look at him as like, he's the fucking next Sean O'Malley. But I've also thought to myself, like, you just watch the guy. He's a cool, personable guy. He's a down-to-earth guy. He's got a cool story. And he's fresh blood in the division. How many Americans are making noise right now in the UFC, doing good things, putting together big win streaks? Few and far between, right? This guy, Marcus McGee, is on the cusp of changing his life forever if he gets 1 big win, if he can get that first and that second round, if he could just go out there and grit this out. So it's easier said than done, right? Like, I think the right guy's favored and should be a big favorite, not just like minus 110, minus 150, minus 200, like minus 250 for Petr Yan. Like, I get that. He was that against O'Malley, and I think that's fair. But is he the same guy that he was when he fought O'Malley? I remember that fight with Merab Dvalishvili where he got marked up like an alien and his head looked like a freaking, basketball. And there was a lot of problems that night, right? His legs were getting destroyed as well in that fight. So Petr Yan at his best, fucking unbelievable. One of the best fighters you ever watch. Is he the most consistent guy? Is that what you would describe his fighting as? I wouldn't say that, right? Like, even round to round, he's not the same guy. So for me, the O'Malley fight did kind of show he could fight close sometimes. He could leave it in the margins. He could give you an interpretable decision. Like, I get where they're coming from. Like, a couple more shots landed. Yan, I think, could mix in some takedowns here. But, like, could the bigger shots, could 1 big defining shot in the first and second round come from Marcus McGee? Or could he, out-volume him by a handful of strikes and get a close decision? That's how I see Marcus winning this fight. Like, I don't think Marcus is going to blow out Petr Yan. I think it would have to be a close win, a gritty win, a competitive fight. But I think Marcus McGee is capable of going out there and winning a round against this guy. The thing I would be afraid of with a spread or something like that is him getting finished in the third. Because Petr Yan's a builder, man. Like, he gets better over time. He starts picking up on your patterns. He starts reading. Oh, that's what you're going to do. I now see what you wanted to do with that exchange. And then he starts adding in, filling in more space. That's where I think, Jonathan Martinez made a huge mistake, right? Like, he hurt the guy's leg so bad and then just pushes him into the fence and gives him a break, let him off the hook. Petr Yan ain't like that, bro. He's a violent man. No mercy for a reason, bro. If he gets your leg hurt, he's going to kick it 10 more times in a row until you do something about it. So for me, that's the difference here. Is like if I was on the Yan side, I'm looking at, maybe counterintuitive, right? Yan by finish, Yan in rounds 2 and 3. Like, hey, maybe he goes out there and just shows like levels to this. I'm better. But on the other side, Marcus McGee, massive money line price when it's the biggest fight of his career. He's going to show up in shape and fight hard for your money every time. So biggest, hardest fight of his career, but huge opportunity as well. This is the kind of fight you need to take and need to win if you want to be a UFC champion, right? Not everybody gets to wear that belt. Not everybody gets to see the crown. And Petr Yan did it. He's been to the mountaintop. Can Marcus McGee join him amongst the greats? He's got one opportunity to find out at 35 years of age. Let's see it. Anything to add here?
I'm going to make my breakdown very quick. I'm not really interested in this fight in a betting standpoint because I think it could go a couple of different ways. And with that being said, it's obviously dog or pass if I think that it can go in the way of Marcus McGee at all. And the way I think he can win this fight is through his aggression, through his leg kicks. He is really tough and really durable and packs a punch. And we've seen Petr Yan drop before and hurt in the octagon multiple times. So I could see Marcus hurting him even early if Petr Yan starts slow like he usually does. I think Marcus could take advantage of that first round and put it on Petr. But as the fight goes on, I think Petr Yan is going to get more and more comfortable and will be able to land the better shots on Marcus. But the power is going to still stay through the 3 rounds with Marcus. We've seen him get his leg completely chewed up and, able to switch stances and be comfortable and throw in both power shots from the left or from the right-hand side. I think Marcus can stand and bang and keep that power for the 3 rounds, making this close. Petr Yan obviously has the advantage in the grappling and the submission, grappling specifically. So there is the angle of the sub if Marcus shoots a lazy takedown after eating a hellacious beating on the feet. If it is a one-sided beatdown like the line is indicating, I just don't see it that way. So for me, dog or pass, I'm not interested in playing the fight at all. But one of my favorite fights and most anticipated fights on the card because I think it could go multiple ways, as I mentioned, and also it's just going to be a lot of action. I think both the guys are going to bring action. They're going to give the crowd something to cheer for.
One parallel I just want to bring up is if you remember Vettori and Brendan Allen, right? They basically went out there and landed a similar commensurate amount of strikes over the course of that 15 minutes. Like it might have been, 10 more strikes for Allen or something like that. But the reason Marvin was like losing every round, even though, it was a competitive fight, was because his nose was broken by the very first punch he got hit with. And so the rest of the fight, he's just bleeding profusely out of his nose. And anytime it would get touched, he would kind of wince a little bit because his nose is broken. And when you look at Petr Yan, I'm not saying like his nose is going to break or whatever, or that the same orbital injury that occurred against Merab is going to happen. But I do think he's got a lot of scar tissue. And I do think that, Marcus hits very hard, right? So if he comes out and lands one big shot and kind of cuts his eye or cuts his nose, breaks something, he's bleeding bad, optics can change very drastically. And one thing to note is that's kind of, again, what happened in the O'Malley fight. If you go back and look at that fight, both guys kind of started bleeding. And then it becomes, anytime you touch somebody and they're bleeding and, they're maybe not showing great reactions anymore, that's the kind of thing that the judges really reward. So I do think, Petr Yan, for as good as he is, for as good as his offense is, for as good as his skills are, the one thing I would criticize is sometimes when he's getting hit in return, the reactions are a little bit like he's like wincing. He doesn't really love it. And that was against Merab, who's not known for being like, Johnny Boxer, right? Like he was out there landing shots on the feet. He was out there landing big low kicks. And at points, it did look like Yan was going to get TKO'd with leg kicks in that fight. So it's not like that's Marcus McGee's the only one who's been in that kind of awkward situation. It's one thing against the champ. It's another thing against Jonathan Martinez. I just wanted to draw that point of comparison. Like, both these guys, a little bit heavy in the stance. They like to box a little bit. So whoever is able to get the leg kick advantage in this fight, I think that could pay dividends. And I do expect that to be on, but he normally takes a little while to make those reads. So let's see who comes out throwing calf kicks in round 1. I think that could make a lot of the difference. And here you just see both these guys similar in size. They square up pretty well. Petr Yan, more experience, more championship pedigree, but huge opportunity here for his opponent, McGee. All right, guys, and last but not least, We got Robert Whittaker, the Reaper. We got Reinier de Ridder. They will do battle in the middleweight division to potentially determine a number one contender. We've got Robert Whittaker. Obviously the setback against Chimaev is going to hold, him back from potential title opportunities. But on the other side, Reinier de Ridder could seal, his fate as, hey, I've beaten a former champion. I've come out there, beat the hype prospect. I've come out there, beat the journeyman in GM3. I've done a lot of work now. Go out there and give me something special. But he's got to go do it, right? He's got to go prove it against the best guy he's ever fought in the UFC. But, a guy that is a former welterweight, right? Obviously, Rob has settled out into this middleweight division, but Reinier de Ridder fought at heavyweight. He fought at light heavyweight. He's a big-ass man. And, a lot of people have found that out the hard way. Bo Nickel, thought 185 was sweet until he's in there with a real middleweight and shit went sideways, right? And I think that for Robert Whittaker, size has been a problem in the past. Yoel Romero, didn't get the wins, but he kind of put the beats to him, right? He kind of laid some real heavy damage on him, kind of changed the career of Rob for a little while there, did some injuries to him, fucked him up. So you look at size was a problem there. You look at the size of a guy like Israel Adesanya, the length gave him some problems. Obviously a different stylistic matchup, but just trying to compare, hey, these big guys, Duplessis, the guy's a gorilla, right? The guy's like one of the strongest guys you see, one of the most physical, mean grapplers that you see. And also just musculature. Like the guy is built like a freaking, muscle-bound animal. Like he's just built differently. So, yeah, I don't think Reinier de Ridder is quite that, but I do think he is a very impressive grappler. I think he's massive. I do think people are tipping the line towards disrespectful with saying like he's not an athlete at all. Like I think that's out of line, right? I don't think he's the most athletic guy you've ever seen, right? Like his balance isn't always perfect and he does some weird things, but I also think he's just a very loose fighter. Like he's kind of like Yuri in that way. Like Yuri is an athletic guy, but he also does a lot of things wrong, right? He does a lot of things that are weird and unique to him, but he makes it work. He makes it his style. And that's kind of what RDR does. Like he's kind of reaching, he's doing these long, tall man things. But then when he gets a hold of somebody, he's throwing knees to the body that make them fold and crumble. He's kind of breaking them down, wearing them down with pace and pressure. And he understands how his bread is buttered. On the other side, Robert Whittaker, world-class fighter, head kick, puts people in the grave. So I think that this could be, another big win for Rob. He goes out there, does his thing. But I think this fight was set up to test whether RDR is who I think he is. And I think he's a special fighter, man. I think he's a really good grappler, like way above average. And I think that Rob Whittaker in his last fight, struggled with the grappling of Chimaev. That's no skin off your nose. But I also think, it's not getting much easier this time, right? Like I think Chimaev is a dominant first round fighter more so than Reinier de Ridder. But I also think Reinier de Ridder is a really special grappling presence. And everybody's going to have to deal with him, right? GM3 didn't want to grapple with this guy. And that tells me a lot. GM3 kind of knew what time it was with this guy on the mat. And he was like, let's keep it on the feet. Let's try and make him tired. Let's try and go body kick for body kick or something. And he lost that fight too. But Reinier de Ridder wanted to grapple with him from the outset, and GM3 didn't want that. And I think Robert, he wants to win this fight. He wants to go out there, use his footwork, be dynamic, knock this guy out. But I think when he gets to the ground and he's going to have to make some hard decisions, I think it'll be a problem for him. So I've been wrong about Rob a million times. I always say celebrate the wins, own the losses. Lost money fading Rob before. Don't know if I'll get to the window, but it's a dogger pass for me, man. I think Reinier de Ridder is a potential future title challenger in this division, and I've thought so basically since he beat GM3. How about you, my man? What do you think about this fight? What do you think about this main event? Any betting value? What do you think, brother?
So I'll be very forward with the way I think this fight is going to go. I think it's going to finish under 3.5 rounds. I do favor the dog side in Reinier de Ridder, that's for sure. But I don't think it's as straightforward as it would be to, it's not as enticing to bet that money line price. Oh, shit. So not as enticing to bet the money line price at plus 130, plus 140s. I would want more like plus 160, 170, just for the sole reason that Rob is levels above Reinier, in my opinion, in the striking. Now, I do understand that we've seen fighters like Yuri and DDP make good work of that style, that very awkward almost like lazy defensive style where you feel like the guy just does not get
The
hurt,
drunken
takes
master.
damage, keeps walking forward. The drunken master, exactly. And that is Reinier de Ridder. But I just think that he leaves himself too susceptible to not just like the head strikes, but it's everything. His defense is not the brightest part of his game. I'll be very forward with that too. I think Rob is going to be able to piece him up on the feet. With all due respect, Rob's going to be able to cut the angles well. He's not going to allow him to get the forward pressure, and if he is, Rob can effectively circle out. It's not like the Khamzat Chimaev fight where you have to worry so much with the takedown threat. I understand Reinier de Ridder is a high-level grappler, but the wrestling has not always come the easiest for him, and Rob's takedown defense is pretty elite. But if this fight does hit the mat, I do think that Reinier de Ridder has a huge opportunity to submit Robert Whittaker just because he's much larger than this guy. So on the feet, I think Rob can knock Reinier out. I think Reinier could potentially knock Rob out. I think Reinier could also sub Rob. All of those early. And the reason under 3.5 rounds is similar to, I'm trying to remember the fight. This was 2 cards ago. I mentioned something along the lines of one of the fighters inviting the pressure almost, or exerting the pressure no matter who is across from him. And that's Reinier de Ridder. He's going to walk you down. He's going to continue plowing forward. And if you let him, he's going to start to shoot takedowns. On the other hand, if Robert Whittaker is finding success in the striking, I think it's not going to take too long for him to find the gap in Ridder's chin and shut his lights out. So I think Rob's striking can make the difference in this fight. And I do think that he's out here to, shut some people up. He's been doubted a lot in the past, and he's already shut down the Ikram Alaskarov train. They tried to use him as a pawn there, but did not work. So for all
well, if you remember, they actually signed him to fight Khamzat Chimaev, and then Khamzat Chimaev pulled out of the fight. They pull in Ikram on short notice, and I still thought Ikram had a chance. So I was dead wrong there. I got to just own that. But that was the situation, right? Ikram kind of stepped in, and bro, like even just looking at like how he looked before the fight, bro, he didn't want to fight the guy, bro. Like he was like, this is not going to end well for me, bro. I felt bad for the guy. I was like, fuck, Ikram knew he was going to lose. Golly.
But let's be honest, Ikram is a much better striker than Reinier de Ridder.
That's true. But I do think that Ikram is not the same grappler that Reinier de Ridder is. I think he's a better wrestler. But...
Also correct. But yeah, I think this fight, it reeks of violence. So under 3.5 is going to be my free bet that I'm giving out today. I have 2 units on it personally. There we go.
Dude, I like that as well. I've heard some people make the case for the over, and like, no disrespect, right? Like, sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, but I totally agree on the under. Early this week.
3.5 though, not 2.5, 3.5.
Nice.
2.5 is minus 111, I believe, and in 3.5 I got minus 165, I believe it was, or minus 160. So I'm willing to lay the juice there.
Makes sense. And what I was looking at was like, I think of both these guys, first 3 rounds, like those are the hot props for them. Like I had said, like Rob round 1, 2, 3, Reinier de Ridder round 1, 2, 3, right? Like it's just like I feel like the way that they meet in this fight, you kind of talked about the dynamic. De Ridder's going to come forward. He's going to attempt to grapple. He's going to attempt to push the pace. Rob's going to try and hit him with big shots, hit him with uppercuts, hit him with punches, hit him with kicks, just like he did against Ikram. So like for those reasons, it just seems like somebody's game is going to win, right? And like whoever's game wins is probably going to look like a big favorite, and that's why I like the side of plus money. But I also acknowledge like Rob could look like a massive favorite if he just defends all the takedowns and beats the shit out of him for 8 minutes and then kills him, But I also think it's one thing to go out there and attempt to wrestle a big heavyweight who's strong as a fucking ox and fail and fail and fail and then give up. And it's a lot different to go out there against a guy who's a former welterweight who was taken down and dominated in his last fight. And like, again, we could learn that RDR is just not who we thought he was. That's fine, right? But I kind of feel like that needs to be proven to me. because what I've seen from the guy is when he's competing at this weight class, he's a beast, man. And GM3 is the guy that wears people out and finishes them in the third round. And so some people were saying in my comment section the other day, like, oh, bro, you shouldn't have to rally against GM3. I'm like, first of all, GM3 is just a hard guy to beat, period. But second of all, it's like, if you're going to beat him, like clacking him on the chin, something like that, that's normally how guys get to GM3. 2 guys ever have submitted him in the UFC, and it was Jack Hermanson with that Joker team when he was on an absolute tear, almost submitted Jacare Souza with the same choke, by the way, and then Reinier de Ridder, who gassed him out and finished him on the mat after having competitive exchanges and then dropping him on the feet as well. Like, he basically showed, like, if it's going to be a striking battle, it'll be close, but I win that. And then if it's going to be a grappling battle, big bank takes little bank. I'm the better grappler. And GM3 is a fucking very legit black belt. So he's also a middleweight, right? He's also a big man. You look at GM3, he's like 6'3". He's got a long reach, you know? So Rob is just a little bit different, right? He makes his speed work. He makes his movement, his in and out style work. And that is very good for striking. Speed kills in striking. In grappling, when you have a giant man with very long limbs on top of you, it's like you're going to have to be really defensively responsible. You're going to have to do a lot of things right, a lot of things well to get back up safely, you know? And I just think that de Ridder is a very high-level ground player. The things I've seen from the guy in his grappling footage are disgusting and ridiculous. So I believe in his skills until proven otherwise. I think we're going to get bookend performances for Jiu-Jitsu. Buchecha, Reinier de Ridder. They're going to both go put on for Jiu-Jitsu. That is the speculation. Also, Narrative Nation, UFC BJJ. How are we going to promote? Jiu-Jitsu. It's nice. Come win UFC fights with Jiu-Jitsu. It's nice. So I think that RDR going to get some Jiu-Jitsu going. I think Marcus Buchecha going to get some Jiu-Jitsu going for the Jiu-Jitsu heads out there. Thank you guys so much for rocking with us. Want to say a special thank you to our guy Wiz, making the walk one day later. We got it done. The post-weigh-in stream. I hope that you guys all enjoyed. If you did, drop a like on the stream. Get subscribed to the channel. Show some love to our great guest, Wiz MMA, whose information you can find in the description box down below. And Wiz, let the people know where they can find you, anything you got going on, anything you want to get off your chest.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Wizz MMA. I'm mainly active on X, as you guys know. I also have posted up my bets on the betmma.tips page on there too. So if you're interested in my picks, you can find them there. Last 2 weeks, I'll be very transparent. Not good. Last week, swept the board except for the Holland fight. Holland fight, unfortunately, I had 3 bets on it. None hit. So turned my night around, and one of them was a max bet tied to the Holland side. But I'm very transparent. Like, I'm still up on the year pretty big. So looking forward to recovering the past 2 weeks' losses and continuing to push forward to 50+ units on the year, hopefully by year's end. But again, Liam, thanks for having me on, as always.
Dude, it's always my pleasure. It was an absolute blast. And I also had a struggle last week, right? I had Kevin Holland inside the distance. If y'all didn't have Kevin Holland, I want to just salute you guys for your discipline and your ability to stick to a long-term strategy. But I will also say I've made way more money on Kevin Holland long-term than I've lost on him. So part of the territory, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Round 3, we saw the reason why we were invested in Kevin Holland, right? He went out there and showed, hey, I have some skill. I have some ability. I almost put him down. I almost put him away. But we also saw maybe a little bit hearkening back to that immaturity from Kevin Holland. Maybe it was a false maturity we've seen from Kevin. And he went out there and kind of just showed he's still the same guy. He's still the same flawed fighter, fights very frequently, maybe doesn't always show up with a consistent performance. And that was a bite, a reminder of that. I will also say, though, shout out to the eraser, Paulo Costa, getting us a nice another underdog win on the board. So we were right on the verge of a reverse sweep, right? Exactly, dude. Marvin Vettori, here's the other thing. I'd make the bet again, right? At plus 175, like, do I think it was a great bet where I got insane value? No, but like my premise of the bet, I was like, I don't think he's getting finished. I think he's going to go out there and land 100 significant strikes. He landed 100 significant strikes. Brendan Allen didn't get tired. So for the first time, I feel like, you know, we saw a better version of Brendan Allen in these recent performances. He got tired against Imavov in 3 rounds. He got tired against, who's the other guy? I'm drawing a blank now. Who else did he fight in between? He lost again via decision.
Well, I was gonna say he almost gassed out against Chris Curtis, but he won that fight. But he was supposed to lose that fight before Chris Curtis got severely hurt with the leg injury. I thought Curtis was winning round 5.
It was Anthony Hernandez, bro. And
Hernandez,
again, like
yeah.
fair enough to lose
Fair.
To lose like a cardio based fight against Fluffy, but you just start looking at like, you know, overall, I'm not really I'm not buying what he's selling, you know. So when I'm looking at last week's results, was it great? No. Would I make some of the same bets again? Yeah, I probably would, given the same information. So now moving forward, my new rule is nothing chalk with Kevin Holland. Just won't do it, right? Won't lay a chalk money line, won't touch a chalk prop. I won't touch chalk with Kevin Holland because he's not reliable for that. But otherwise, man, like even the sub prop I had at plus 3XX, he went out there and almost subbed him in the 3rd round. So again, I'm just kicking myself that it wasn't meant to be on the night, but process over results. We're right back to it. Can we look at the information again and say I would make the same bets in that situation? That's all we could do. So this week, I will say I am going to be very selective with my bets. Like I don't love the venue. I'm going to be very particular about, you know, probably betting finish props, like guys that I think could finish, guys with big upsides, small bets to try and get a nice return. That's the plan that I have for this event. Because I just don't want to overextend on an event where I feel like a lot of volatility, a lot of, you know, shadiness. I had Carlos Leal at one of these recent events here, just got robbed blind. Every media member, every person you ask is like, yeah, no, I saw what you saw. Like he clearly wins the fight. So when you look at, you know, the record on the year, I will just say this. Our guy Dana Black in the chat, I'm sure he's a longtime fan, longtime listener, says these
Dana White would say the opposite.
These 2 guys are casuals right here. I'll just say this, guys. Always, you can find in the description down below, myself, Wiz, all of our bets, third-party tracked. We keep accountable for our work, Asan the jackpot every week. So when we do well, we'll let you know that. When we do poorly, we'll let you know that. I'm up about 15 units on the year, like a 30% ROI or something like that. Am I, you know, satisfied? No. You know, I still have higher goals. I have higher aspirations than that. But that's where we're at right now. And we're just trying to move in the right direction week over week. We're trying not to, you know, overswing. We're trying to just take it one event at a time. When we see opportunities, try and capitalize and then keep pushing forward. So all of our stuff, third-party track down in the information box below. Tail fader indifferent. Appreciate the support. Appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody rocking with us. God bless you all. Good luck with the fights and come back next time because we're having all the same fun again. We'll see you after Abu Dhabi, folks. Take care.